on Joyce Drive in Baton Rouge around 10:30 last night. After an argument, Mullins was taken to the hospital where she died. Bentley fled. He's wanted for a list of charges, including first-degree murder and home invasion. He's considered armed and dangerous.
September 16, 2020. A quiet Wednesday night in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The streetlights glowed faintly through a humid haze, the kind that always seems to hang heavy before something terrible happens. Inside one modest brick home on the city's south side, 3 children huddled together, clutching a phone with trembling hands. Their voices cracked with panic. "My mom's on the floor, she's bleeding." Dispatchers tried to calm them, but every second felt like a lifetime. Police units raced through the neighborhood, lights cutting through the mist, until they reached a small house at the end of a cul-de-sac. When officers stepped inside, silence met them. Not the kind of silence that follows peace, the kind that follows horror. A woman lay motionless on the living room floor, her favorite blanket thrown halfway across the couch, her children's school shoes by the door. She had spent her life caring for others, and now she was gone. Her name was Brenda Mullins. To her friends, she was the one who never forgot a birthday. To her kids, she was the heart of their home, the laughter, the comfort, the strength. To Baton Rouge, she was another face in the crowd, until tragedy made her a name everyone would remember. But the storm that destroyed Brenda's world didn't come from outside her home. It came from someone she once trusted. Someone who had promised to love her. The shooter wasn't a stranger lurking in the dark. He wasn't some nameless figure hiding behind a mask. He was a man Brenda had let into her life, and into her children's. And what makes this story unbearable is knowing that the warnings were already there. 2 months earlier, that same man had aimed his gun at another woman, and pulled the trigger. Police knew. The courts knew. The system knew how dangerous he was. They had every chance to stop him. But they didn't. The result? 3 children, orphaned by the same man who had promised to protect their mother. And a city left asking the same question we're about to explore tonight. How does someone so clearly dangerous slip through every crack, until it's too late? Welcome to City Crime Tales, where we uncover the stories that cities try to forget. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, because tonight's case will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about justice. To understand how this tragedy unfolded, to understand how Brenda's life ended in that quiet Baton Rouge home, we have to start at the very beginning. We have to go back to 1979, to a little girl born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, a girl who spent her entire life trying to bring light to others, even in a city that would one day fall into darkness. Because before the bullets, before the fear, there was love. And that's where our story begins. Before tragedy ever touched her life, before her name became a headline, Brenda Mullins was simply Brenda, a daughter, a sister, a friend. Born on December 10, 1979, right here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. She grew up in the kind of neighborhood where everyone knew each other's stories. Summer evenings smelled of magnolias and barbecue smoke, and kids played in the street until the streetlights blinked on. Brenda was the girl waving from the porch, the one who shared her snacks, who made sure no one was left out of the game. From the beginning, people said she had an old soul. The kind that listened more than it spoke. The kind that made others feel safe just by being near. Teachers remembered her as gentle, determined, and endlessly kind. In middle school, she'd volunteer to help classmates with homework. In high school, she worked weekends at a small grocery store, saving every dollar for college textbooks she hadn't even bought yet. She never had much, but she always gave more than she had. A neighbor once said, "Brenda didn't just live in this community, she lifted it." When she became a mother, that compassion only deepened. Her 3 children were her greatest joy, the reason she worked long hours, the reason she kept smiling when life tested her. She juggled work, school meetings, and bills like a professional tightrope walker, graceful, steady, never letting the people she loved see how tired she was. Her co-workers at All-Star Toyota of Baton Rouge said the same thing. She treated every customer like they were family. If someone came in angry, they left calmer. If someone looked lost, she made sure they were found. She wasn't just selling cars, she was spreading kindness in a place that rarely gives it back. Subtle ambient background of dealership sounds, phones, laughter, the hum of conversation. After years of giving everything to her job and her kids, Brenda began to think about herself again. She was 40 now, confident, radiant, standing on her own 2 feet. Her children were growing, her life was steady. And for the first time in a long time, She thought maybe it was safe to open her heart again. But Brenda didn't want perfection. She didn't dream of fairy tales or grand gestures. What she wanted was something real. A partner who respected her independence, who loved her children as much as he loved her. Someone who would build with her, not break her down. She didn't know it then, but life was about to test that hope in the cruelest way possible. Because the man who would soon enter her world, the man who said all the right words, smiled all the right smiles, wasn't looking for love. He was looking for control. He'd walk into her life smooth, confident, magnetic. And behind that charm, there was darkness waiting to surface. His name was Devin Juice Bentley. And from the moment they met, the countdown to tragedy had already begun. Every city has its shadows, places where ambition and danger live side by side. And in Baton Rouge, one name moved through those shadows like a spark waiting to burn. He called himself Juice Bentley. A local rapper with a growing following, a loud voice, and an even louder reputation. On stage he had it all, the swagger, the chains, the rhythm that made the crowd chant his name. He rapped about loyalty, betrayal, and revenge. His lyrics dripped with menace, each bar sounding like a story. But if you listen closely, those stories weren't fiction. They were warnings, his own confessions dressed up as entertainment. Behind the mic he was Devin Bentley, a man police already knew by name. His record stretched back years. Home invasions, illegal weapons, bar fights that ended with blood on the pavement. He was the kind of man you didn't cross. The kind who smiled while chaos followed behind him. But to Brenda Mullins, Devin wasn't that man. At least not at first. When he met her, he turned on the charm. He showed up at her workplace with flowers, laughed easily, told stories that made her feel seen. He told her she was different. He said he wanted something real, a family, stability, a new beginning. And Brenda, ever hopeful, believed maybe this time she'd found someone who understood her heart. At first, everything seemed perfect. He'd send good morning texts, pick her up for lunch, bring her kids small gifts. He made her feel chosen, special. Her friends noticed the sparkle in her eyes again, the way she'd hum while getting ready for work. For the first time in years she looked happy. But love built on illusion can't last. And soon that smile began to fade. He started texting constantly, dozens of times a day. Where are you? Were you with? Why didn't you answer? At first she brushed it off as protectiveness. Then came the jealousy. The questions turned into accusations. The warmth in his voice started to vanish whenever she set a boundary. If she took too long to respond, his messages came sharp and rapid. Don't ignore me. You think you can play me? He'd call until she picked up. If she didn't, he'd show up, uninvited, unannounced. Her friends began to notice. The vibrant woman they knew was retreating, checking her phone every few minutes, speaking softer, apologizing more often for things that weren't her fault. It wasn't love anymore. It was control wrapped in charm, jealousy disguised as protection. Have you ever met someone who seemed perfect, until you started saying no to them? Drop a comment below. What's the biggest red flag you've ever ignored? Because for Brenda, those red flags weren't just signs. They were flashing warnings. And the countdown to something unthinkable had already started. Before Brenda ever met Devin Bentley. Before the flowers, the promises, the charm. Another woman in Baton Rouge had already seen the mask slip. It was July 2020, 2 months before Brenda's death. Summer heat clung to the city like a warning no one could hear. The woman's name hasn't been released publicly, and maybe that's mercy. Because her story isn't just tragedy, it's a blueprint for what was coming. She dated Devin Bentley for a few short months. At first, he was magnetic, generous with compliments, protective to the point of obsession. But when she tried to pull away to take back the quiet she'd lost, Bentley's affection turned into rage. He began showing up at her job at her mother's house, sending long messages that swung from love to threat in a single breath. Her friends begged her to block him. She tried. But people like Bentley don't accept endings. They rewrite them. One humid night, she was home with her 4 children, ages 6 to 14. They were watching TV in the front room when the pounding started. 3 knocks. Then another. Then the sound of a man shouting her name through the door. She told the kids to go to the back bedroom. Her hands shook as she picked up her phone to dial 911, and then came the crash. He kicked the door open, drunk, furious, eyes unfocused. He screamed that she'd ruined his life, that she belonged to him. And then he reached into his waistband. 2 deafening gunshots, which splintered. The smell of gunpowder filled the air. Children screamed and ducked behind furniture. Somehow, by pure chance, no one was hit. But every neighbor on the block heard the echo. Calls flooded the police line. When officers arrived, Bentley was already gone. They found bullet holes in the walls, shell casings on the floor, and a woman shaking so violently she could barely speak. She told them the name. Devin Bentley. The rapper. Juice Bentley. Police issued an arrest warrant that same night. Charges: aggravated assault with a firearm, illegal possession of a weapon, home invasion. They typed his name into the system, again, because this wasn't his first time. But when officers went looking, he was already gone. No address. No phone. No trace. Friends claimed they hadn't seen him. Family said he was staying low. His fellow musicians refused to talk. Every lead ended with a closed door. Baton Rouge police searched, but their reach was limited. Bentley knew the streets better than they did. He moved through the city like a ghost, hiding in borrowed rooms, changing cars, sleeping with one eye open and a gun never far from his hand. While detectives waited for a break, Bentley was rebuilding his ego. He posted online like nothing had happened. Photos of new shoes, new lyrics, new bravado. Underneath the captions, his followers left flame emojis and free juice comments. No one realized the man behind those posts was wanted for firing shots inside a home full of children. Weeks passed. The case slipped down the list. Paperwork piled up. And the woman who had survived his rage tried to move on, checking her windows twice at night, jumping at every knock. She told police she feared he would come back. He never did. He had already found someone else. While the system searched for him. While one woman tried to heal from the terror he'd left behind, Bentley was still out there. Still armed. Still dangerous. Still free. And somewhere across that same city, unaware of the storm moving her way, Brenda Mullins was about to meet him. By late summer 2020, Brenda Mullins' friends had noticed the shift. Her laughter was quieter, a little forced. She stopped volunteering for weekend events. She avoided her favorite restaurants, even her own neighborhood park. Her phone was never far from her hand. Every vibration made her flinch. Every call or message could be him. Friends grew concerned. Some noticed the subtle bruises hidden under long sleeves. Some noticed the sudden tension when her phone buzzed. Finally, it was her sister who asked the question that had been on everyone's mind, the one Brenda herself was afraid to voice. "Brenda, is he hurting you?" That's when Brenda learned the truth. Devin Bentley wasn't just a man with anger issues. He wasn't just a volatile boyfriend. He was a fugitive. A man wanted by the Baton Rouge police. A man who had already pulled a gun on another woman, in front of her children. Brenda's stomach sank. Her heart raced. The room felt smaller, heavier. The man she had opened her heart to. The man sitting at her dinner table. The man smiling in family photos. Was someone who could bring death into her home. She confronted him. Face to face. Calm but resolute. He denied it. He twisted the story. He blamed everyone. He told her the police, the ex-girlfriend, the world, they were all lying. And then he snapped. Shouting, yelling, gesturing violently. He tried to manipulate her with guilt. He tried to shame her for questioning him. And in a final plea he begged, almost like a child, almost like a predator, not to leave. But Brenda had made a choice. She had studied the signs. She had watched the patterns. She had decided. No more chances. No more lies. No more compromise. And that decision, that one act of courage, that moment of clarity, would be the moment that sealed her fate. Because some monsters don't forgive. Some monsters don't stop. Some monsters wait. She had chosen life. But in Baton Rouge that night, life wouldn't be enough. September 16, 2020. A Wednesday night that began like any other in Baton Rouge. Inside one modest home, Brenda Mullins was with her 3 children. The living room was warm. The kids were laughing at a cartoon, blankets tangled around their legs. The smell of dinner still lingered in the kitchen. Brenda sat on the couch, half watching TV, half scrolling her phone. Her heart was heavy but steady. She had made her choice. She had told Devin Bentley it was over. She believed that tonight at least she would have peace. Then a knock. Sure. Insistent. violent enough to make her flinch. "Who is it?" she called out softly, hope lingering in her voice. Shouting followed. The voice she knew all too well, Devin Bentley. Angry, wild, dangerous. The man who had charmed her, threatened her, manipulated her, standing outside her door. And then, gunfire. 2 bullets tore through the door. The first struck her arm, pain flaring, shock setting in. The second hit her chest. Brenda's body slumped forward, instinctively shielding her children. Her children ran to her side. Tears streamed down their faces. Little hands tried to hold her, to stop the bleeding, to fix the impossible. But there was nothing they could do. By the time police arrived, Brenda Mullins, a woman whose life had been devoted to love, kindness, and family, was gone. The shooter had fled. But the truth didn't hide. Brenda's children, trembling and crying, told the officers exactly who had done this. "It was Juice Bentley," the child whispered. Days later, police finally located Devin Bentley. Captured. Arrested. He showed no emotion. No remorse. The man who had once promised love, protection, and family had become a monster in their lives. He was tried and convicted of second-degree murder. And he received the sentence he deserved. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. Brenda Mullins' life was cut short by a man who couldn't accept rejection, who couldn't respect boundaries, who left destruction in his wake. But her story, her courage, her love, her choice to stand up for herself, remains. A reminder that even in darkness, the human spirit can shine. Brenda Mullins, born December 10, 1979 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, a woman whose entire life was devoted to kindness, love, and family. She worked tirelessly, balanced a demanding career, and gave everything to her 3 children. She made a home filled with laughter, warmth, and security. She believed in love, in second chances, in hope, in the possibility of a safe, happy life. And yet, despite all she did right, the system failed her. 2 months before her death, warnings had been given. Police had evidence. A gun had already been fired in her city. A man known to be violent was free to walk the streets. If those warnings had been taken seriously, if someone had acted decisively, Brenda might still be here today. How many times have we seen this story? A woman reports violence. A man walks free. And tragedy strikes. Every time we ignore the red flags, every time we downplay the threats, we risk losing another Brenda Mullins. Her story is not just about grief. It's about courage. About the power it takes to say, no more. About the bravery of a woman who tried to protect herself and her children. If this story touched your heart, share it with your friends and family. Let Brenda's story remind everyone of the warning signs, and the lives we can save by paying attention. And if you want to see more stories like this, make sure to subscribe to City Crime Tales and turn on the notification bell. That way you'll never miss a story that matters. In memory of Brenda Mullins, 1979 to 2020, your courage and kindness will never be forgotten. Let her story remind us all to act, to protect, to never ignore the signs. Because lives can be saved. And sometimes, even one action can make all the difference. Stay safe and see you in my next video.